May 27, 2015, just before sunrise. Guests at one of Switzerland's most luxurious hotels were waking up to another ordinary day. But hidden among them were some of the most powerful people in world football. Men who controlled billions of dollars. Men who could influence where World Cups were held. Men who helped run the most popular sport on earth. Then came the knock on the door, not from hotel staff, from police. Within hours, football executives were being led away under arrest. The world's biggest sport had just become the center of one of the largest corruption investigations in modern history, and according to prosecutors, this wasn't a recent scandal. It had allegedly been happening for decades. More than 5 billion people watched the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Think about that. More than half of humanity. For 1 month, nearly the entire planet stopped to watch football. At the center of it all sits FIFA, an organization founded in 1904, a governing body originally created to coordinate international football matches. Simple enough, except over the next century, FIFA became something much bigger, much richer, much more powerful. Today, FIFA controls the world's most valuable sporting event. It negotiates broadcasting contracts worth billions, signs sponsorship deals worth billions, awards hosting rights worth billions, and when billions of dollars start moving through any system, people start competing for influence. The question wasn't whether football would attract corruption. The question was how long it could avoid it. The answer, not very long. Years before the arrests, years before the FBI, years before the headlines. One journalist kept making the same accusation, Andrew Jennings. To FIFA executives, he was a nuisance. To football fans, he was largely unknown. To investigators, he would eventually become one of the earliest warning signs. For years, Jennings dug into FIFA's finances, its leadership, its relationships, its business partners. He wrote books, released investigations, appeared in documentaries, and his central claim was simple. Football's governing body wasn't merely suffering from isolated misconduct. He believed corruption had become systemic. At the time, many people dismissed him. After all, the World Cup kept growing, sponsors kept paying, fans kept watching, FIFA appeared untouchable. But behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to form. To understand FIFA's future scandal, you need to understand a company called ISL, International Sport and Leisure. During the 1990s, ISL became one of the most important companies in football. It acquired valuable marketing rights, television rights, commercial partnerships. ISL helped transform football into a global business. Then it collapsed. In 2001, the company went bankrupt, and investigators started digging. What they found was alarming. Swiss investigations uncovered evidence that millions of dollars had allegedly been paid as secret commissions and kickbacks. Money moved through hidden channels, complex transactions, offshore structures. The scandal exposed a disturbing possibility. What if corruption wasn't an exception? What if it had become part of how business was conducted? Yet despite the controversy, FIFA survived, its leadership survived, and football continued growing. The warning signs were there, but almost nobody realized what was coming next. If FIFA was an empire, Sepp Blatter was its emperor. He became FIFA president in 1998, and for the next 17 years, he ruled football. Supporters loved him. They pointed to football development programs, global expansion, record revenues, new tournaments. Under Blatter, FIFA became richer than ever before. But critics saw something different. They saw a leadership structure concentrated around a small group of powerful insiders, a political system built on alliances, votes, influence, and loyalty. As football's popularity exploded, so did FIFA's power. And then came the decision that changed everything. A decision that would trigger questions still being debated today. Who should host the World Cup? December 2010. The football world waited. 2 World Cups, 2 host nations, 1 vote. The results shocked many observers. Russia would host the 2018 World Cup. Qatar would host the 2022 World Cup. The Russia decision generated discussion. The Qatar decision generated disbelief. Qatar had never hosted a World Cup. Summer temperatures were extreme. The country was geographically tiny compared to previous hosts. Almost immediately, questions began. How had Qatar won? Who voted? What happened behind closed doors? Investigative journalists launched inquiries. Government agencies launched inquiries. Football officials launched inquiries. Allegations emerged involving lobbying efforts, political influence, possible vote trading, questions about relationships between key decision-makers. Soon, the controversy became so intense that FIFA commissioned an internal investigation. Former U.S. prosecutor Michael Garcia was asked to examine the bidding process. What followed only deepened the controversy. The report became a story itself. Arguments erupted over transparency, over what was disclosed, and over what wasn't. Meanwhile, unknown to most fans, American investigators were already following a much larger trail. While football officials debated World Cup votes, federal investigators were building a case. Not against a single official, against an entire network. The investigation focused heavily on football business in the Americas, particularly media rights contracts, broadcasting agreements, marketing deals, tournament rights. Investigators began tracing money, bank accounts, wire transfers, corporate records, offshore entities, and according to prosecutors, a pattern emerged. They alleged that certain executives had been paying bribes for years, in exchange for lucrative football contracts. The numbers became staggering. Millions, then tens of millions, then more than $100 million in alleged corrupt payments. Investigators claimed corruption had become embedded within parts of international football's business structure. Now they needed evidence, witnesses, and eventually, arrests. May 27, 2015, Boer au Lac Hotel, Zurich. Police entered quietly. The operation had been planned carefully. Officials were identified. Rooms were located. Arrests began. Within hours, images from the hotel were appearing across global television networks. Football executives, handcuffs, police escorts, breaking news alerts. The impossible had happened. FIFA looked vulnerable. For years, the organization had survived controversy. Now law enforcement agencies were publicly dismantling parts of its leadership structure. The story exploded worldwide, and it was only the beginning. The scandal's shockwaves reached the very top. Sepp Blatter won re-election, then resigned days later. Michel Platini, once considered the future of FIFA leadership, became embroiled in controversy surrounding a payment from FIFA. Jerome Valcke faced investigations and ethics proceedings. Names that had dominated football politics for years suddenly faced unprecedented scrutiny. The old order was collapsing. The people who once appeared untouchable were now defending themselves against investigations, court cases, and public criticism. For the first time in decades, FIFA looked vulnerable. What followed the dramatic dawn raid in Zurich became one of the largest anti-corruption prosecutions in sports history. For years, investigators across multiple countries unraveled bribery, money laundering, racketeering, and fraud spanning continents. More than 40 officials and executives were eventually indicted by U.S. prosecutors. Many pleaded guilty, others fought extradition. Several were convicted in court. Investigators traced hundreds of millions in illicit payments over more than 2 decades. Allegations included bribes tied to television rights, marketing contracts, hosting decisions, and sponsorships. Money moved through shell companies, wire transfers, offshore accounts, hidden in plain sight. According to prosecutors, this wasn't a few bad actors. The reckoning reshaped careers, leaving the game to confront what came next. One of the highest-profile defendants was Jeffrey Webb. Webb served as president of CONCACAF and was viewed by some as a future FIFA president. Federal prosecutors said he accepted millions of dollars in bribes connected to marketing rights for international tournaments. He eventually pleaded guilty to racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering conspiracy. Perhaps no figure symbolized FIFA's old power structure more than Jack Warner. For decades, Warner controlled enormous influence throughout Caribbean football and international politics. U.S. prosecutors accused him of accepting more than $10 million in bribes related to South Africa's successful bid to host the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Warner denied wrongdoing and fought extradition from Trinidad and Tobago. To this day, he has never stood trial in the United States. His legal battles continue to serve as one of the most controversial chapters of the scandal. Former Brazilian Football Confederation President José Maria Marin was extradited to the United States. He was found guilty on multiple corruption charges involving millions in sports marketing kickbacks and was sentenced to prison and ordered to forfeit millions of dollars. The former president of CONMEBOL, Juan Ángel Napout, also stood trial in New York. Evidence presented during the proceedings included secret bank accounts, shell companies, coded communications, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. Napout was convicted of racketeering conspiracy and wire fraud conspiracy. He received a 9-year federal prison sentence. Perhaps the investigation's most extraordinary figure never stood trial. Chuck Blazer had already become one of the government's most valuable cooperating witnesses. For years, Blazer secretly recorded conversations with fellow football officials while wearing a hidden recording device. His cooperation gave investigators unprecedented insight into FIFA's internal operations. His testimony helped build cases against many of his former colleagues. Blazer later admitted to accepting bribes connected to World Cup bids and other FIFA competitions. Although Sepp Blatter was never charged in the U.S. FIFA corruption case, the scandal destroyed his presidency. Under enormous international pressure, Blatter announced his resignation just days after winning another term as FIFA president. He insisted he had done nothing criminal. However, subsequent ethics investigations by FIFA led to lengthy suspensions from football activities. Swiss prosecutors also opened separate criminal investigations involving financial dealings during his administration. Michel Platini, president of UEFA and once considered Blatter's natural successor, became embroiled in investigations over a controversial 2 million Swiss franc payment authorized years earlier. Both Platini and Blatter denied wrongdoing. Their legal cases would continue for years through Swiss courts. Even though both were eventually acquitted in criminal proceedings after lengthy legal battles, the controversy effectively ended Platini's hopes of becoming FIFA president. Facing overwhelming public outrage, FIFA promised sweeping reforms. Independent governance committees were established. Ethics procedures were strengthened. Executive committee members were replaced by a larger FIFA council. Term limits were introduced for senior officials. Financial disclosures became more transparent. Host nation voting procedures were revised. Compliance departments expanded dramatically. FIFA also hired outside auditors and investigators to monitor governance. On paper, the organization looked very different than it had before 2015, but critics questioned whether the reforms addressed the culture that had allowed corruption to flourish for decades. Today, FIFA remains one of the most powerful organizations in sports. The World Cup is bigger than ever. Revenues continue growing. Fans continue watching. The game itself remains beautiful. But the scandals changed something fundamental. They changed how people see football's governing body. They revealed that behind the trophies, behind the celebrations, behind the billion-dollar spectacle, were ordinary human weaknesses: greed, power, influence, ambition. The FIFA scandal wasn't simply a football story, it was a story about institutions. A story about accountability, a story about what happens when enormous power operates without enough scrutiny. And perhaps the biggest question remains unanswered. Were the scandals the end of football's corruption problem? Or were they simply the moment the world finally noticed? The real question is whether football truly learned from its greatest scandal, or whether history is simply waiting for another whistleblower to expose the next chapter. What do you think? Did FIFA really learn its lesson from the 2015 scandal? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. See you next time.